Alexandra,
Yes.
you just won a Peabody Award for your film, How to Dance in Ohio. I want to start by asking what recognition like that means for you.
I mean, it means everything, the recognition. I think, they keep talking about how a Peabody is for stories that matter, and to have them say this story matters it's thrilling and validating, and really more than I could have dreamt of.
Well, let's talk about where the idea for this movie came from. How did it get started?
I have a friend who has a daughter who I have watched grow up, and she's now 18. She actually turned 18 on Saturday. And I've always wondered sort of what's going to happen and what does coming of age look like for her, and
Because
had a
she
lot
has autism.
Sorry, yes. She actually doesn't speak. She's nonverbal on the autism spectrum. And I just had a lot of questions about what coming of age looked like on the autism spectrum. And that was where it got started.
Mm-hmm. So talk about finding this school in Ohio. What led you there?
It actually isn't a school, but a lot of people think it's a school.
Okay.
It's a therapy practice. So some of the clients, they go to school, and then afterwards they'll come to group. So I was doing a lot of research about teenagers, about autism. I was actually doing it in the tri-state area, and I met someone at a conference in Newark who said, "You have to come meet my doctor in Columbus, Ohio. He's incredible." And I went and met Dr. Amigo, and I went and he was doing a play called Law and Order Fairy Tale Unit, and many of the people that are in the movie were in the play. And I started talking to him, and he said, "Well, we're actually doing a prom in April, and we're going to bring, all of our clients to a nightclub, and we're going to spend 3 months in group therapy, preparing for it." And I was like, how do I come move in and film that? And he let me. So that was incredible, because it was the most relatable way to tell the story. And who doesn't know what it's like to be scared, and about your first dance and your first date and talking to someone all of those sort of fears that a lot of people have gone through at one point or another. And then these kids, these teenagers and young adults, were going through it in a magnified way.
Mm-hmm. So take us through the filmmaking process. You were there for 3 months, you said?
Yes, we filmed for 3 months.
All right, take us inside there. How many cameras did you have? How big of a crew did you have? What was it like shooting at this therapy center? Take us there.
So we had one camera the entire time until the dance. Then we had 3 total at the dance, because we could never have filmed it with just one. But it was myself, my cinematographer, Layla Kilborn, our sound recordist, Josh Isaac, and my producer, Barry Perlman, and we were there the whole time. We had 2 local crew members that were incredibly helpful. And we spent actually the first entire week just getting the clients comfortable with the process. And it's funny, because I'm just started filming this morning a new project, and we just did the exact same thing this morning. So it's taking me back. But the first night we were there was a town hall meeting, and it was, everyone got to ask questions. They either asked them directly or through Dr. Amigo, and they really, I think, wanted to feel comfortable and understand why we were doing this, and what did it mean, and where was it going to go, and all of those things that are really important to ask when you're making when you're going to be a subject of a documentary. And then the whole first week we sat in a room, and 4 or 5 clients at a time would come in, and they would touch the camera, and they would touch the boom, and we would really demonstrate where we were going to be in their group therapy sessions. So I think that went a long way in creating the kind of intimacy and trust that I hope shows up on camera. So. Mm-hmm. So that was the filming of, that was the beginning. Then we filmed for 3 months. Some clients were comfortable only being filmed in groups. Some were comfortable being filmed in interviews, and some said you could even come home with us, which, then we actually went home and went to work and went to school with various different clients.
Yeah, and I think those are some of the most incredible sequences in the movie, when you are following these people when they're going to, like the one girl who is in college, I forget her name, but
Caroline.
Yes, Caroline, or the girl who is working at the bakery. I mean, those scenes really do give you this feeling of what it's like for people with autism to go about their daily lives, you know. So can you talk about some of those scenes?
I think it was very, very important that the way that we filmed, and then I think that the way that we edited, had a lot to do with trying to always make sure that someone felt like they were with these people, with the subjects, not looking at them. And that was a very, very specific structure that we, the pacing, all of it was about just allowing you as a viewer to be with Caroline in college, to be with Jessica at the bakery, and to experience what she was going through instead of sort of looking in on her. So that was a big part of the process.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most powerful moments for me in the film was, and again, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, the girl who works in the bakery. Jessica, yes, thank you. Where she's saying to her boss, I just want to be understood, you know? So can you talk a bit about that? I mean, like, I guess what I'm getting at is that this film seems to go a long way in helping them be understood, if that makes any sense.
I hope so. Thank you. I think that, well, that scene in particular is Jessica, you know, at work having a really, really hard time, and her boss is upset with her, and they're having a conversation, and Jessica gets very emotional, and it's a very heated, intense scene, and Jessica is saying things that are very important to hear from someone on the spectrum, which is like, I don't understand. I'm having trouble processing, you know, and even what the doctor, with the bakery owner, who also is a psychologist, was saying was like, it's not all black and white. So there was a lot in there. I think that to your point about going a long way to having them be seen and heard, you know, when you just let people speak for themselves, you know, and they were able to. That's also complex in that this was a high functioning group of people who are able to speak, but it was very important to me that they spoke for themselves. So, you know, that was part of why we had all those interviews where, you know, we have the sections where we say, like, what are your interests? What are your struggles? And I think that because they verbalize something that, you know, there isn't most of what I see in the movie and I heard from the clients, it's not that I've never felt that or thought that. I just know what to do with it. Like, I learned really early what to do with it, or, you know, I know not to say that out loud. And I think that that kind of bridge of understanding was the goal. Like, we're not all that different, and some people struggle in different ways, but the essence is the same.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to ask you some more filmmaking questions.
Okay.
So you're shooting for 3 months. You've got endless hours of footage, I'm assuming. Talk about constructing it into a narrative for the film. Well,
we had 240 hours of footage. It's 3 months. There's a lot of sessions and a lot of going home, and so we actually started the edit with the dance, because, you know, we knew that you're going to arrive at the dance, and it was very important to know, where do our characters end up, and, you know, what are their moments, what happens for them. And so we actually edited the dance first and backtracked from there.
Okay. So throughout this editing process, I mean, were you forced to lose things that you really loved because maybe you didn't have enough time? Or I'm just curious about that.
We actually lost a whole person who I loved, and then I made a short just on her because she was so incredible, but her story had made it. They didn't relate to each other. Her story was, she was a much older woman. She had 4 children on the spectrum. She's sort of how we ended up in Columbus, but this was a coming of age story. So we really, I mean, for the first few months, she was in there and it didn't work. And so it just didn't work, and we, you know, took her out, and it started to make more sense. And that, you know, this was a story of coming of age, and Meredith, who was 16, and Caroline, who was 19, and Jessica, who was 22, you know, they were all in different stages of coming of age, and that made the most sense in terms of telling the story. But there are a lot of scenes. In fact, I'm looking through scenes to put in the DVD. So there's like about 4 or 5 scenes that we had to edit out that I'm gonna put in the DVD.
I look forward to seeing those. Can you give us a hint of what they were, or?
Well, one is a fantastic scene of Dr. Amigo with a group of boys having a hilarious, I mean, they go into space and there's who's bringing what and who's the captain. I mean, it was so amazing and it was the most connected session. It just didn't make sense in the movie, but it's a great, great scene. And then there's a great scene of Caroline, you know, just that didn't really work in the movie, but it's very much her character and her personality. And then there's actually the scene where Jessica and Tommy, where Jessica starts having a crush on Tommy. And they're in this class together and they have to pretend they are on a blind date. And so she develops her crush on Tommy in that class. So that scene. And then there's another scene of Meredith at school, which is fantastic. And just because to me, I always wanted more of Meredith. But the scene didn't really work in the movie. I mean, it's so hard to lose the pieces that don't create a narrative structure. But I think that they'll work really well once you've seen the movie as DVD extras. So,
so talk a bit about your background and how you got into documentaries. What attracted you to that medium?
Well, originally I really loved photography. I was studying gender. It wasn't really called gender studies when I was in college, but I was definitely interested in gender issues. And I ended up in India and was going to do a photo essay on eunuchs in India. And as soon as I got there, I realized that there was no way that still photography could possibly capture this community. And I had studied film, but not. I'd taken a couple of year-long courses, but not a major, and ended up hiring an Indian camera crew, lived there for a year, and made a documentary about the hijras of Mumbai, but Bombay at the time. That's how it got started. And then once you're in it, you fall in love.
Right. So you said you're working on a project now. Are you at liberty to discuss what that is, or?
Yes, I am. I just started filming a documentary on refugees resettling in Baltimore. So I'm in Baltimore, and spent the morning at the International Refugee Coalition office, and actually, it's called 2 different things, but International Rescue Committee or Rescue Coalition, and filming refugees who are resettling here.
Okay, yeah, well, I certainly look forward to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So lastly, I just want to ask you, this film, I think, has a real impact on anybody that sees it. I mean, I was just watching it the other day with my roommates, and they were all very moved by it, as was I. What do you hope to achieve with this film, or, what do you hope the reaction to it will be from anyone who sees it?
I have a few different hopes. I mean, of course, I hope that people relate in some way, that they fall in love with these characters, with these people, and the way that I did. But that they maybe look at people that are a little bit different and they say, oh, wow, you know what, I can actually probably relate to that person more than I thought I could, or some bridge of understanding. I think that that's what I hope. And I actually, my favorite screenings, I love showing it to everyone, but when we were at Sundance in 2015, we were selected for the student program, and they showed the film to 2,300 high school students over the course of 3 screenings. And it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary to see young people empathizing and really relating in that way, because they could, they were like, oh, well, I would love to have a roadmap for how to do this. I mean, it's something that in high school, no one tells you. No one, you're just supposed to learn it. And so I think to see people struggling in a more extreme way than the average teen was very powerful for them. So.
Yeah, I think some of the most powerful moments in the movie are the ones where there's this universal truth to it. I mean, there's a relatableness to what they're going through, even though they have autism. I know that sounds awful, but, you mentioned the Jessica having a crush on Tommy. That scene where she finds out he's going with somebody else to the dance is just I'm like, I've been through that before, you know, like, so
All
to
have.
see, yeah, so
Yeah.
to see her processing that and going through that, I think really goes a long way in bridging this gap of understanding.
Well, she's just more honest than everyone else. And she's, you know, she's having trouble processing it, but she's really honest about her disappointment. She's like, I don't understand, but why isn't he available? Why isn't he available? And, you know, when people laugh, I know that they were laughing because they know, they're like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've been there.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on the film. It's really great, and
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a great day.
Bye, you too.